So you wanna become...
Welcome to Fuller Butz, a behind-the-scenes plastic surgery podcast. Yes, you heard that right. Join your co-hosts, Dr. Sam Fuller and Dr. Dan Butz, board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeons, on an exclusive full-access pass into the world of plastic surgery. Combining their expertise and training, Drs. Fuller and Butz will share medical insights, detailed explanations, and lighthearted humor to keep you entertained and informed. We're certain you'll become passionate about the plastic surgery specialty, and between debunking myths, uncovering truths, or just making you laugh out loud at their perspective on this creative and artistic field, we've got something for everyone. From tummy tucks to Botox and mommy makeovers to surgery do-overs, the Fuller Butz podcast will surely satisfy your podcast fix. All right, now let's dive into this episode.
Welcome back to the Fuller Butz podcast. Dr. Butz here and our co-host, Dr. Fuller. Can't believe we've done, 12 podcasts now? We just finished up with thighs last week.
Yeah, it's been a rush. It's been awesome. I can't believe just the starting out, trying to get our first podcast edited and revised and done. And now we're on to a dozen, Baker's dozen, and winding down our first season. And it's been great. I think we have now over 10 countries that we have listeners in, and 160, 170 different cities. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's been a blur the last, several weeks as we keep launching new episodes and titles, and we're just coming off the arm lift and thigh lift, right?
Yeah. It's been a fun experience. I never really thought about doing podcasts, and when you came up with this idea, I was like, it's a good title. We can have fun with it, and you can't waste that. So, arms and thighs are a good topic. Very common surgery we do. What's been going on lately? You do anything? Any crazy dog bites, cat bites, guinea pig bite, snake bites?
I just gave a work comp seminar talk on some of those bites and injuries. And so I talked about the snow leopard bite, talked about some gunshot wounds that happened on the job, a donut press injury, and all of those. So that was exciting to give that feedback and the results for, 6 months out. I did a really great arm lift on Monday and was thinking about our podcast just in the pre-op area, just doing the markings and just, kind of going through the steps of how to make that as elegant and as satisfactory as possible. Have you been discussing any arm lift or thigh lift techniques or information recently with any patients?
Actually, I just had a great consult, which kind of ties in with what we're talking about today, who lost 70 pounds on, Semaglutide, Ozempic. And she's already had facelift, facial fat grafting, her eyes done because of some of the facial changes related to that. And now she's really bothered by her thigh laxity. And it's pretty extensive, needs probably, kind of an extended thigh lift, also tied in with a torsoplasty kind of combo. It's when those big weight loss, lots of skin laxity, it can be a pretty important surgery to get those contours back.
Yeah. And as we discussed in previous episodes, it's just becoming so much more common that patients are able to safely lose weight in a structured way, in a very efficient way. And a lot of it is due to skinny shots, Ozempic, Semaglutide. And so we thought we would just focus on an entire episode of just discussing the nitty gritty, the pros and cons, the side effects, the benefits, and all things as it relates to plastic surgery with skinny shots, right, Dan?
Yeah. I think obviously massive weight loss, major weight loss surgery has been around for a long time, but a lot of those patients require, insurance approval to get these weight loss surgeries. And so it wasn't as available to patients who didn't maybe need to lose 200 pounds. But now we're seeing a lot more patients who, just been stuck with an extra 30, 60, 70 pounds. And this has been able to kind of, again, change their relationship with food in a sense to allow them to modify their diet and get to, their goal weight much more efficiently and safely without surgery.
Yeah, and I think if we even stop and before we even get into Ozempic, just talk about what in our training patients were doing to lose weight. If we talk about like bariatric surgery, gastric bypass, Roux-en-Y, gastric sleeve, those are all effective ways, but at the same time, that's not a guarantee or 100% foolproof, for a lifetime. There are patients who end up gaining weight even after those procedures. And so if that was a 100% gold standard, the only way. I don't know if we would have found as many other options. And then certainly we were talking before the podcast about fen-phen and other medications. And, can you briefly tell our listeners what some of the worries that we had on other weight loss regimes were before skinny shots came around?
Yeah, I mean, years ago, a lot of the weight loss medications are basically stimulants, which could make you burn more calories, have a lot of energy, but also had a lot of cardiac potential side effects if you use them too much or too high of dosages. Your heart was just running in overdrive. So much riskier to use kind of in a long-term basis. And those weight loss surgeries, much as they're effective, also have side effects like nutritional deficiencies. They often don't absorb nutrients like you need to, so you need to really stay up in your labs and do all these things to kind of ensure that you're getting the adequate nutrition, because they're often bypassing certain parts of the bowel. So yeah, I mean the skinny shot has really revolutionized weight loss in a pretty big way.
Yeah, and as much as we think it's mainstream because we're seeing it day in, day out, I do think that there are, many populations, many individuals who still don't really know what the skinny shot is, what Ozempic is, what are weight loss options that are currently available. So can you go into at least just a little bit of detail as far as what the basics are for skinny shots or Ozempic or these other weight loss avenues that we're mentioning and have been mentioning in previous episodes?
Yeah, so there's I think there's 3 different kind of trade names: Wegovy, Ozempic. They're all basically the same thing. This glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1 analog is a naturally occurring peptide in your body that your stomach makes when it's full. Then it goes to the brain, tells you that it's full, and then you stop eating. So this basically replicates that and makes your stomach think it's full faster to make you not eat as much. So it's kind of breaks down or kind of gets in the way of that feedback loop and slows down the stomach emptying. It's also, again, this is originally created for diabetics to improve their insulin resistance and kind of decrease how much insulin they need. And then they were seeing that those patients were losing a lot of weight, and it's kind of been spread into really taking over kind of the weight loss industry pretty rapidly.
So is that something that I can just go on Amazon and buy? Like, how do I obtain the skinny shot? It sounds so great.
I mean, you probably could go on some website and buy it, but really, I mean, you should properly, I mean, there's pop-up spas everywhere kind of offering this, but there's a safe way to do it, and you really should be seen and kind of supervised by a physician to make sure that you're not at risk for any of the common side effects. And doing it properly. If you just jump in at the highest dose, you're going to have a lot of side effects. And I'm sure you've had patients complain about this, or you've heard about this. What are some of the common issues that patients often see when they first start taking Ozempic?
Yeah, I mean, patients who are naive to it, if they start on a higher dose or even a lower dose, how it interacts with the body is variable from person to person. But as you mentioned, with delayed gastric emptying, a lot of times they just have this feeling of fullness, and sometimes that can be uncomfortable to the point of reflux. So they can be, when they're sleeping, feeling like they have acid in the back of their mouth. They can be just feeling nauseous. They can be having some stomach pains, all of the other symptoms of GERD or reflux, inability to tolerate coffee in the morning, just feeling like they're generally unable to tolerate anything by mouth. And that could eventually lead to just nutritional deficiencies, to sickness, to illness, headaches, and they're just not feeling well because they're not having anything that they're able to tolerate. These side effects can be adjusted, and it's a weekly dosing, and so typically it wears down or wears off as the days go by. But certainly patients should be alerting their provider of these issues so that they can decrease the dose, they can adjust the medication, change it to a different type of drug to try to get them the benefits of it without the side effects.
Yeah, I think fortunately now we've learned a lot more about this, and there's pretty, again, if you're being supervised, good strategies to ramping it up. So you don't start out at a 0.5 milliliter dose. You start out at maybe just 0.12, then slowly increase it. And you don't want to take it after a full meal, because then that meal is going to just sit in your stomach and you're going to wake up in the morning and feel sick. And so common things, you have nausea. Sometimes people throw up because they just can't get that food out. Constipation, you might not feel hungry, but you need to stay hydrated to prevent constipation. So there's ways to, ramp it up or titrate it up slowly to prevent those things. And having someone who knows what they're talking about help you kind of guide you through that, I think, is essential.
Yeah, going to an experienced weight loss provider, a weight loss center, is critical because it's not only the information that you need to, in a healthy way, lose weight. Because if you're just cutting weight, hey, I dropped 20 pounds, that may all be muscle. That you can end up getting very fatigued, very weakened, and you want to make sure that your protein intake is key, that you're actually lifting weights, working out, and you're doing it in a healthy way for your body, instead of just having important resources being wasted away rather than the ones that you actually want to lose. Secondly, there are, one Ozempic is not necessarily equal to another Ozempic. There's different pharmacies and how they, create the formula. And from what I've heard, there can be some, misdosings, or there can be some, improper ways of managing that medication from a formulary and pharmacy standpoint. So you really want to be going to a place where they know what they're doing. They're getting their medications from a reputable source who knows how to handle that product.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately, because it's gotten so popular, it's kind of like the counterfeit Botox we talked about a few weeks ago. Like, there's basically, fake or off-label Ozempic-like products out there that just don't really do what they're supposed to. It can maybe make you sick. So you want to go to a reputable place, get the real stuff. If it seems too cheap, it probably is for a reason. So it's not just like anything with surgery, Botox, injectables. You don't always want to go for the bargain here. You want to do what's safe for yourself and your body.
Yeah, and I think to that end, I think a great next segment would be talking about some myths and debunking some information about Ozempic. So, Ozempic or skinny shots, semaglutide, it's a weight loss medication. And so the side effects include weight loss. There's this catchy phrase or term called Ozempic face, where they have different celebrities, relatives of the Kardashians, who have pictures taken by paparazzi saying, "Oh, this person's got Ozempic face." Dan, can you tell us, what that they are referring to, and is that in fact a side effect, a result of a complication? Like, what is Ozempic face?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's when you lose a lot of volume in your face, you get volume loss. Sometimes you get the sunken in cheeks. Buccal fat pad removal was kind of like a really trendy thing about a year ago too. So people are like, "Oh, it's Ozempic face," or just said buccal fat pad removal, which gives you kind of a sunken in look. But with that weight loss, you get skin laxity, which isn't really Ozempic's fault. It's just the weight loss fault. Same thing, some people say they lose their hair when they're on Ozempic. It's a nutritional deficiency. It's not actually the result of the Ozempic. So you're maintaining good nutrition, so you're getting all the right vitamins, and protein is really key. But just like I mentioned, the thigh laxity, that's not Ozempic's fault. It's just the weight loss fault. But fortunately, there's lots of things we can do to fix that if that's the weight you want to maintain.
So, you talked about a patient who successfully lost weight on Ozempic, 70 pounds, in your office. That's great. You end up pinching some skin, doing some lipo, doing the thigh lift techniques that we talked about last week. For someone who has Ozempic face, like, they may be happy with their body or the fact that they're actually healthier, but they still have some sunken features of their face. Is that something that they just have to live with? Is that something that is filler, fat transfer? Like, what are some possible treatments for somebody who doesn't like the way their face looks after weight loss?
Yeah. I mean, fillers are definitely an option to add some volume. Fat grafting is a little bit more permanent solution, and which is commonly combined with facelifts. So my partner did, a lower blepharoplasty, removed a little fat from there because there's some fat pads, and upper blepharoplasty. These are eyelid surgeries to remove that kind of loose skin, make the eyes look, brighter, younger, more open. And then a deep plane facelift to really reposition and tighten that, and then put fat in through the mid face. So the photo we had in our EMR, and when she walked in, I was like, "Oh, you look like you're 6 months out." She looked fantastic, and all very much rejuvenated, and didn't have any of those kind of facial volume loss features. from a very eloquently done surgery. So, just like all the biosurgery we talked about, there's a lot of, obviously options for facial aging, facial volume loss. Fat grafting versus filler, they can both be effective, but if there's really loose skin, you probably need to reposition, tighten that. And a facelift is kind of definitely the gold standard. There are non-surgical options for minimal kind of laxity, but when there's that degree of skin laxity, a facelift is going to be your best option.
Yeah, and I think another myth or controversial topic regarding skinny shots, Ozempic, semaglutide, is the gastric emptying issue. A lot of naysayers saying, "Oh gosh, it's going to ruin your stomach. It's going to dilate. It's going to have terrible emptying. It's going to be paralytic, not move and bend." And I think that while some of the side effects do include, slow emptying of the stomach, it's compounded because this medication is used on diabetics who, a result of diabetes is gastroparesis or delayed emptying. And so it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, at least in my opinion, as far as like how much permanency there is to, stomach emptying and stretching of the stomach for feeding and for emptying as far as, that issue. So to me, I don't worry for patients, or I try to calm them saying, hey, like you're probably not going to have a stomach that doesn't contract and empty just because of this medication for the rest of your life. That's certainly like a side effect or a result of, but some of that is, I think, just patients with heavy diabetes or significant diabetes. That's a side effect of that disease itself.
Absolutely. And when it comes to gastric emptying, we talked a little bit about surgery. I mean, what do people need to think about if they're going to go under surgery? Like, do they continue this medication? Do you stop it? How do you prepare for surgery if you're on Ozempic or one of these meds?
Yeah, that's a great question that we discuss preoperatively with patients, just reviewing their med list. If they are on a skinny shot medication, our surgery center where I perform my cosmetic surgeries recommend that it's held at least for 1 week. That's the national guidelines. I know you had mentioned on previous episodes that even if they can go even 2 weeks, it's probably even better. That half pound maybe is gained in the week leading up to surgery. That is inconsequential, as opposed to having a full stomach that potentially can lead to aspiration, can lead to some anesthesia issues, fullness of the stomach, especially after a tummy tuck or something. So that's the reasoning why we want to hold it. Ozempic, as a clarifying point, should be stopped at least 1 week prior to surgery. Otherwise, at least at our surgery center, it would be canceled and rescheduled. And that's certainly a lot of planning, a lot of time commitments on our end, on the patient's end, on family members who are ready to help out. And then what do you tell patients for after surgery?
Yeah, I like to wait, at least probably 1 to 2 weeks afterwards. I want you to be getting good nutrition after surgery. So we often talk about extra, especially for these larger, mommy makeovers, extra protein pre and post. Your body's in the healing phase. We don't want to be nutritionally kind of deficit in any way. So kind of, I think we'll say 2 weeks for that. And again, a lot of it, the goal, and this kind of talks about, the transitioning off of Ozempic, stopping Ozempic for a week or two shouldn't make you just start gaining weight. Ideally, you're learning new lifestyle habits, your new relationship with food, to not just kind of switch back over to kind of old habits. And, whether it's binge eating or just too much sweets, whatever that is, ideally you're transitioning off of it at some point, correct? Like you don't want to be on Ozempic the rest of your life.
Correct. Yeah. What I like about Ozempic is that it has the potential to provide sustainable weight loss, something that's not a crash diet where, hey, I'm going to take this, it's going to increase my metabolism. It's, something that's an accelerant. It's going to push stuff out through my GI before I can absorb it. And then as soon as I stop this unhealthy thing, I'm just going to gain it back. Ozempic is something that, as you said, natural peptide can provide some, decreased appetite, some slowing of the stomach, and really provides you with an opportunity to change your habits, your relationship with food, your ability to change your portions, to improve your nutrition, your exercise habits. It's just a change of lifestyle that can be healthy, with the goal of either stopping it, not continuing it, for life, or having a maintenance dose that's once every 3 weeks, once every 4 to 6 weeks, kind of talking with your wellness director, your nutritionist, as far as do you need a little touch up here and there just to kind of keep things at bay. And, it's, what I've seen is that's variable from patient to patient, partly from insurance, like is insurance covering it? And then partly from, costs, like do they want to continue to pay for it? So I don't know if you've seen both sides of how patients are obtaining this through insurance-based reasons and PCPs versus strictly med spas and cash pay.
Yeah, it's definitely a good mix. I think a lot of patients are paying cash, but some are definitely early on in their journey getting it through insurance. But then at some point, they insurance doesn't like to keep providing that unless you have diabetes or a true reason, medical necessity reason for it. But again, I think a lot of it, you get to that goal weight, and also you see all the benefits. You're feeling better. You're changing your lifestyle, and this happens with other patients who just lose weight naturally, right? Like they get there, they've worked so hard, and then it's much easier to maintain. So you've kind of, not that it's ever like you reach the top and you're done, but you've seen the benefits of all that hard work, and it's you want to keep working to maintain it. So just turning off the switch again. Oftentimes it is a tapered off. You don't just stop and not take it, but slowly kind of decreasing the dose or spreading it out to then watch yourself and kind of make sure those habits you've formed are more permanent.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to successfully lose weight. You can do it the old-fashioned way. You can, work out more, exercise more. You can adjust your diet. You can do intermittent fasting. You can talk with a nutritionist and count your calories and your carbs and get on different point systems. You can have bariatric surgery. And then, what the trendiest thing is that we're just seeing more and more, which is the topic of discussion today, is, skinny shots, Ozempic, Semaglutide, which is yet another avenue for patients to lose weight. And just with the other ones, it's meant to be educational, informative, not something that you're married to, dependent on potentially, but learning from and learning how to keep these habits going, just as if you were adjusting your lifestyle and your habits for alcohol intake and food intake and all of that other jazz.
I think it's interesting you mentioned alcohol intake. That's one of the Ozempic is not losing weight, all these things. It's not just about how you look and how you feel. Obviously, those are really great benefits, what we often focus on, but there's a lot of other health benefits. So, diabetics are, their insulin resistance is decreasing, less of their insulin medications. There's cardiovascular data showing that there's lower risk of heart attacks, strokes. It seems to have some anti-inflammatory properties. Joint pain is getting better beyond what you'd expect from just the weight loss. So this is a medication that can really make a lot of health benefits for you beyond just, what the scale says. And there's newer data looking at, alcoholics and drug addicts who this can really, not just curb appetite, but also curb kind of cravings for some of these things. So that kind of goes beyond, obviously, at least my expertise in this, but, just reading some of that preliminary stuff is pretty interesting, kind of how, in the brain functions and cravings and desire for, drugs, foods, the dopamine release is kind of where a lot of this is coming from. And this kind of helps, put a little cap on that in a sense.
Yeah, I had a patient, interesting, tell me, after the skinny shot, she used to, just crush like 6, 7, 8 slices of pizza, when her family would order pizza. And now she's like, I can't believe I would eat that much. It's like 1 slice, 2 slice, and I'm full and I'm good. And it's not
You're satisfied, right?
I'm satisfied. Like it just is, it's changing, some of the habits and getting back from maybe American portions of volume intake dietary to, what's really essential. And just cannot, say enough that having some preoperative workup to make sure that you're fit, you're a candidate for Ozempic. Dan, are there any past medical history or anything that patients should be aware of before they start taking this that you're familiar with?
There seems to be maybe a slight increased risk of patients who have a family history of thyroid issues or pancreatic issues, which, the data is not all that clear, but if there's issues with that, you might want to get that worked up a little bit thoroughly to make sure that's not compounding anything. Obviously, the pancreas is really important with gastric emptying. So if that's delaying, that can cause some issues there or increase the risk of pancreatitis. Again, very kind of rare stuff, but stuff you want to be aware of and careful about.
So in part, to summarize, Dr. Butz, as a board-certified plastic surgeon, do you feel that skinny shots, Ozempic, are safe avenues for patients to use in order to lose weight?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think it should be not looked at as a simple solution or shortcut, but a way to kind of get to your goal and then working with other avenues, exercise, diet modification to kind of maintain. What do you think?
I agree. I'm just trying to hit this home for the listeners here. Dr. Butz, as a board-certified plastic surgeon, do you think that this is a gimmick and next year Ozempic skinny shots are going to be surpassed by something else? Or do you feel like it is here to stay?
I think it's here to stay. We might see new versions of it come out, maybe that have less side effects, which would be great, or maybe pill forms instead of injectables. So I think it's going to change, but some sort of this, GLP-1, peptide is going to be around for, forever unless we find something better.
Yeah, it's all about supply and demand. And so the demand is huge. And so I'm sure manufacturers are trying to change that peptide bond a certain degree, maybe to limit some of the side effects, some of the nausea, some of the stronger attributes of it to make it well tolerated and to market it. I think that there's a huge opportunity and they're, reaping the benefits to manufacturers. I know one of our friends, Dr. Mark Ward, who was considering bariatric surgery when he was in training with us, just said, I don't want to go down that route because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a pill or a shot or something that's going to replace my job. And I don't think that that's necessarily here currently, but that's certainly a maneuver where these patients may not need to have as many bariatric surgeries, potentially if there's a medication that is equally effective without the undertakings and tolls of surgery.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a great overview. I think it is safe. I think it's a good thing for patients to be aware of, and it's not just a skinny shot. There's a lot more to it and a lot more benefits beyond that. What's up next? We have one more on deck.
Yeah, I think
we take a summer break.
I thought we were going to dive into a couple of just interesting, high popularity or just important things that we get asked a lot about, including, the incisions that we make, what happens in revision surgery, and, how do we approach, second opinions as far as having, patients had surgery elsewhere out of the country. Maybe they're not happy with their results. Maybe they're not 100% satisfied with our results. What are some approaches or just some conversations that we have with patients in those situations, just to provide that education. I think that's, on the docket for next week.
That's a great topic. Well, we'll see you then.
Yeah.
Quick wrap up.
See you later.
All right. See ya.
Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Fuller Butz, a behind-the-scenes plastic surgery podcast. Doctors Fuller and Butz are so appreciative of your time and attention. We invite you to subscribe, share, and continue to enjoy our plastic surgery perspective. Feel free to reach out on Instagram at either @SFullerSurgeryMD or @DanielButzMD. That's Butz with a Z for comments, suggestions, and support. Remember, be artsy, stay scientific, and make life fun. We hope you'll join us again on the next episode of Fuller Butz.